Hello and welcome to Gunnar Weiskamp's Web Development. This is lesson 2 in the .NET MVC area, and we'll be looking at Entity Framework, adding a database, data annotations, model state, and more. So again, we're showcasing Entity Framework. We'll be adding a database to the app, talking about data annotations, model state error handling, and adding custom errors, saving, creating, and deleting data to the database. Talking about important concepts when saving to the database, in particular the HTML begin form. On that, the the MVC creates a lot of code for you, which is good, but I just want to point out certain items which I think are important, because sooner or later you'll have to manipulate some of that code yourself, and if you know where and what to do, that can help. That has been my learning process anyway. We're going to split this lesson in 2 parts, as it mentions there, because there are a lot of concepts to cover. So let's get into it. Right. Bring up Visual Studio. As you can see, we've got the 2015 Community Edition here, which you can download for free if you want. And we'll do new project. Okay, so just briefly, .NET Core is a new technology coming in, and it's looking to replace MVC, I believe. So I just wanted to point that out. That's these guys here. Yeah, so .NET Core, possibly the new greatest thing from Microsoft. Just take note of the framework that I'm using there, so 4.52 for this app. Okay, let's quickly browse and create an appropriate area to put this in. Projects, we're going to call this a CRUD application, because that's what we're going to do. New folder, and CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update and Delete Application, because that's what we're going to be able to do after this application is done. So here we go, and call this thing CRUD as well. But if you need something more appropriate, then feel to name it whatever you want. So now we have to set our MVC as to what we want it to be. There's many different MVC apps you can do. We want it to be an empty MVC app, because we don't want all the code that's normally generated with it. So make sure that's ticked and that's ticked. Press OK. You can cancel on that one. The first process, so as mentioned before, we're going to be adding in a number of items to this application. I find it appropriate to do this sort of application in this order. First add the database, then add the entity framework in, and then add your controllers, views, things like that. While this is loading, I'll make a brief statement on the entity framework. For some people, if it's new, the entity framework is a complicated piece of kit. It can do many things. It's one of the things it can do is it allows you to link an object with the database and draw down a data model or data representation of your database, and then work with that data representation within your MVC code. It has many add-ons within that, so you can actually use that entity framework to create, delete, save and read actions as well, which we will actually be showcasing today. Within the entity framework is a class, an important class called DB Context, and from the DB Context class holds many different and integral and important parts to the entity framework, and your actual entity framework will inherit from that class many different aspects. So that's coming along. I'm going to try to be a bit. We're going to create our database first, as I said. Now I'm going to also be copying over lots of different code, because I've made this application first. So the naming conventions of the database and the entity model, if you want to follow what I'm putting in, you might find that useful as we progress. Come on, Microsoft. Okay, so on our right here we've got everything we need. For the moment, as I mentioned, we are going to first add our database. So we go to add, new item. Oh, we've actually got it down here, SQL Server Database. And we're going to call this database user data. So because I'm going to be copying over code, try to, or please name it the same, because you might get conflicts later on within the code, which is not a big deal either. You just got to change certain things, but if you're new to this, you might find that a bit confusing. While that's happening, I'm going to grab the database script that I have actually already made, which will help us in a second. Right. Okay, I think we're all good. Adding application insights to the project. Now this process might take a bit, so yeah. So just please forgive me for that. Yeah, you might want to fast forward a little bit here, because I believe this could take 1 or 2 minutes. Or if we're lucky, it might be quicker. Last time when I built this, it took a while to add these application insights, which I will probably not even use. But so on the left, you can see that here our database is created. This is called the Server Explorer area, and it can hold all your databases that you create, and you can manipulate it from here. Obviously, this database is local to my machine, and you do need to make certain changes if you are uploading this to a live environment. I might as well talk about concepts here for people that might be new to SQL. Well, this tutorial is not really about SQL. Tables. This is where we put our tables. Views. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to try to talk about views. I know how they work, but I haven't found them quite useful. Stored procedures are very useful. You in here, stored procedures are objects that you can create with which holds SQL, which you can then use those stored procedures in your application to insert, create, and make certain things happen. So stored procedures I've always found very useful functionality. Your functions, much like stored procedures, but they're functions, and these guys are just, well, I've never used them before personally myself. So that's a little bit briefly there on SQL Server. Yeah, hopefully this will open up soon. The wonderful aspect of live demos. Certain things are just taken out of your hands. But feel free to fast forward a little bit if you want, because I do know that people's time is important. I do sort of like to create this process click by click, because it's easy to miss something, and then obviously the end result is your application doesn't build correctly. If you haven't grabbed a cup of coffee, now might be the time to do that while this is doing its process. While we're here, I guess, references, if you're new to C# and this whole world, the reference elements within an application houses many different aspects to what makes the whole process work. It's hard to sort of talk about in an easy manner. If you're going to write to a file, in here you'll see a namespace or a library which might be called system.io. That gives you special ability to write to files. So that's a little bit about the reference area. Come on, application insights. You might have noticed this guy here, system component models.data annotations. This is the namespace which holds all our data annotations, which we'll be looking at soon when this guy builds properly. Yeah, so he's an important little guy. Right. Anytime now. Power of Microsoft. This is one of the reasons I'm splitting this tutorial up in two, because I have a inkling that we might get these little timeouts. It's adding more libraries. Please bear with me, but feel free to fast forward once this adding application insights to project ends. Come on. You have to wonder if it's actually doing something. Again, apologies for this, but again, feel free to fast forward. Right, I think, well, hopefully the movement on our right indicates that it's getting somewhere. Wonderful. Oh, my lord. I do need to get a quicker machine. Right, okay, now hopefully things will proceed somewhat a little bit quicker. What we'll be doing now is adding a new table. Yep, so click on that. Okay, so yep, alright, come on. Alright, the designing surface is loading. Alright, please just let me... Right, okay. I don't want to design a surface is loading. Good old... Okay, right. Okay, Server Explorer, add new table. Wonderful thing with live demonstrations, you can get all these wonderful things that happen. No. Okay, there's another way around this. We'll just create a query. So this is just creating the table, as we can see here. Feel free to have a look. We've got 3 items. So yeah, let's do that. So we should now have a table in here. We do have to go in here and make sure that we have a primary key set up. Okay, there's our table. Okay, properties, open table definition. Okay, hopefully this time it will do what I hope it's going to do. Loading, the design surface is loading. While we're waiting for that, we'll grab some of this out here. Maybe there's another way around this. It's just not going to be my day a little bit today, is it? Don't know why everything's taking so long on the computer. So here, this is our insert script. We're going to insert information into our database of the script. As you can see, feel free to have a look at that and copy it over. Let's see if, no, it's just not going to work for us, that aspect today, is it? I'm just going to see if we can insert something here. Okay. This is just a primary key issue which I wasn't able to set up properly, but for the sake of this tutorial we're just going to circumnavigate that a little bit. So we're just adding an ID in, because that is taking way too long. And 3, so all we're doing here is now we're inserting an ID into the ID column. Oh, we've got an error. Here he is. Alright, so now I know there's a problem loading it. But from a database perspective, we've got everything we need now. We've got our table, we've got our information in there, so we can get rid of that process. And now, if it's not doing something else, let's add our entity framework in. Finally, add new item. The entity framework, you normally add that into your model folder. So yeah, I've just typed that in there. We're adding that guy in here. Now, just briefly, we will call this entity this as well. Add. We've got this guy that comes first. We're going to pick entity frame designer from database. That just means it's going to draw certain items down from our database area. Next. So make sure your entity is called this guy here. We've got our database here, which has been called across from here. And this is going to put a connection string within your web config file as well. So yeah, let's go click on next here. Click next for that. So you'll see some magic come up here. As it mentions there, it's getting the information that it needs from the database. And hopefully this doesn't take too long. Okay, finally things are responding a little bit quicker. So yeah, we can see that it's drawn across this user info table here. So it's very powerful to do that. If you had more tables, it would draw more information across. So that's a good thing in a way. But as I said, imagine if you had a huge database and you had 100 tables and to draw all that into your application. For me, that approach is just a little bit overwhelming for small applications like this, which is why I sort of mentioned, for me, I don't think the entity framework is good for large scale. If you're going to build a large scale application, you then have to create possibly more sophisticated ways of communicating with your database information. So this might take, well, hopefully not too long. Yes, it is doing something. Yes, okay, thank you. So it's just showing it's added all, so yeah, okay, it's adding the entity framework into our application. It's adding a few different areas of this. So it's adding certain namespaces, sorry, to our references area here while the entity framework is being put in. Again, just feel free to fast forward to the interesting bits. Once these processes are put in, we've just got to copy and paste all the code over, so that process should be easier. Come on. Yeah, again, sorry, but feel free to fast forward. I don't know why my computer's so slow today. Oh, we've got a green bar. Yay. And as it says here, adding entity framework to project. Yes, thank you. I just wish it would say adding entity framework really quickly to your project, but unfortunately it's doing it very slow. Feel free to, again, fast forward to the interesting bits. So after the entity framework is added, we will be looking to add a controller. We'll also dive into the entity framework, into one of the files, and add our data annotations there. Okay. Yay. Don't need to see that. So as we can see here, this is part of the entity framework that's come up here. What it does, it creates these data representations of certain aspects of your database, which I talked about briefly before. And this is just that table from our database, the user info table there. So that's one of the things that entity framework does. So you can see here in our models folder, a lot of information has been added into our model here. This is the entity framework. This is our database information. We might as well, right, So I'm going to add data annotations quickly in first. Whoops, no, didn't want to do that. Come on. Right, here we go. Okay, so user info, I have typed this code out before, which will be of some use to us, so we can literally just copy and paste this over. That should be correct. Partial class user info. So what I'm here trying to do for you guys is to make this process a little bit quicker, because I realize it's been quite slow. So data annotations is held in this namespace, system component model dot data annotations. How does this magic work? Okay, so here I've put one of these data annotations onto the full name. What does this mean? So data annotations are made up of these sort of attributes, which are kind of these square brackets. What we're doing here in this data annotation is we're saying this full name will be required when we enter information. That's what this data annotation does. You can give it a individual error message for that, which I've typed in here. Please enter a full name. So that's what the required data annotation does. We've done that again for the age. So for our age here, we've added again the required one. We've also added a range data annotation for our age, called a range data annotation. And we're saying the entered in information has to be between 22 and 88. There are many different, many different data annotations that you can use. Once you get more, so there's a regular expression data annotation. There's an email address data annotation. That means anything associated with that has to be in the email format. So as you can appreciate, data annotations can be quite powerful, and I would recommend that you use them. So that's data annotations in a brief nutshell. That's how they work, and you obviously put them with your model here. So that's that guy. Now I think things are responding a little bit quicker, which is good for everybody really. We're going to add a controller. Yeah, we're just going to add an empty controller in because I want to add the code in bit by bit. We're going to call it home. Oh my god, it's working so much quicker. Famous last words. So I'm just going to add a few actions here now into our controller. Just some initial ones, and then we will cover some of the other aspects of this project in lesson 2. So let me just grab the code that I've already done here to make everything so much more quicker. Yeah, so let's just cover the edits. Do we need this here? Let's just grab this here as well. Right, we're just going to cover these ones in this first lesson. Oh, it's still doing stuff. There is no scaffolding to apply to this controller, so I don't know why it's doing any scaffolding. But hey, so here we go. We do need to add in here our model's namespace. So yeah, that talks to this guy here, and it draws in the various components from that. Now this user data entities, I will spare a second to talk about this. If we go to its definition, so where's this object coming from? Because this is quite important for some people that are new to Entity Framework. This is a core piece of process. So this user database entities will inherits from this DB context. And this DB context, which is what I mentioned before, has a lot of attributes which will allow you to manipulate and do work actions against your database. So he's the magic guy. He has functions off it that allows you to save, edit, delete, and do numerous things. So this guy is important to find in your application because you use this guy to reference this guy, and this guy does all the magic. So I did just want to mention that. And as you can see there, he's kept in our model folder as well as part of the entity framework. So I think he was important to look at. Right, so now we've got some code finally. Why I've got that there, because I have, but we don't need it. So here in index, what are we doing? We're creating a data entity, and we're going to draw from that all our users via this toList link aspect of the entity framework. So let's sort of backtrack here. The DB stands for the user data entities. Now in that it has many things, but mostly of use is the table that you're trying to work with. So in this case it's the user info. That's the table we're trying to work with. Now all we want to do from that is get all the items, and that's what toList will do. It'll get all the items, put that in this guy, which is passed off into our view here. So let's add a view for this. We will be using a model, and we will be listing all users. So please, if you can, make sure everything is set to that. Do not worry about any of this. So make sure your view is now set to those properties. Click on Add New. Underneath that, you can already see here we've got some edit code, which I'll briefly explain in a moment. And we need to create views for those as well. Oh, okay. Yes, I know what's going on here. Yeah, we need to build a project first, because for the controller to see certain aspects of the models folder, it needs to know where they are, and that's what the build does. In my haste, I forgot to do that. So while that's building, I guess it's appropriate we talk about the edit action in here. And this guy here, if you've never seen this guy here before, a HTTP GET, what that does is tells MVC that this action is a GET action. By GET action I mean it's going to call something and show it. It's not going to update or do any updating. It's just going to call and render a view to the screen. In the code here we're also passing the ID of the person we're going to edit, as we can see. And we're again, this is the same as mentioned in the above. We're just creating a entity object there. Then we're going to select the user that we're trying to edit, and that's what this link expression does. So what this link expression does, it looks at this table first. This is our link expression. It goes into this table and says, get me where the items in our table equal the ID that we're passing in here. And then this first default just gets that first record for that. And then we're just simply returning the user found back to its associated view. While it's still building, I guess we might as well look at the post action of the edit action. So normally with most places you'll have a get. So we're going to get and show you stuff, and then you want to post information back to the database. Oh, hold on. I think it's built. So views. Oh, sorry, it's still building. Sorry, my mistake. Okay, so we can't obviously add views. I saw this ready and I thought it was finished, but it's still building. Anyway, so we will now look at this whole HTTP post action. So we've got this edit here. It'll pass the whole user info class back. So this object here gets passed back here into the post action. So again, the post action is when you post something back, and that means you want to do something to the database. You want to update it. We have this model state piece of code. For people that are new to this, they well obviously are wondering what that is. This does a check on what we've entered to see if we've entered everything correctly. Now you might remember in here we added these required things, attributes. So what this does is says, did you enter the first name? If you haven't, we will return here and an error message will be shown. So that's what model state is valid check does. Quite useful. If we have built, the build has succeeded, but we'll finish off this here. If we have entered incorrect information, we're just going into here. We want to find the user in our database with the correct ID, and then we're just going to go into here, do our save changes, redirect to this thank you page that I've created down below, and yeah, finish off our process with a thank you message. Your record has been saved, thanks for the work. There's so many pieces of code that I like to talk about here. Redirect to action, to those new, that allows you to redirect to a new action in your code here, and that's what it does here. We're going to the thank you one. So in redirection, we've got a couple of parameters here. This is the action that we're talking about. This is the controller that we're in, so that's the control action, and this is the parameter that we're passing here to the thank you call. So that's what happens there. It's good to catch up exceptions here, and in this one I've added in custom exceptions. So by that I mean this will be displayed on the screen once the view is returned. If everything goes well, oh, we don't actually need to have that code in there, do we? No, we don't really need that code in there. Well spotted. So we won't worry about that because this will happen or this will happen. But let's just get rid of that code. I don't think, yeah. There's like that. That seems fun. Right, so this is our thank you page, which we'll need to add a view to as well. View bag, the message simply gets added to our view bag here. The item save gets that piece of information. So redirect to action, we'll call this, passing our thank you message, which will be shown on the screen via this object here. Now, finally, if we can, let's add a view. And this time it should pick up on our model. Now we want to show everybody, so we want that list, and we want to use these models. And make sure to fill in that data context class as well. Reference that off, add. Oh, and oh, yay, hallelujah. It's actually doing something. Hopefully this does not take too long. But yeah, so that's the two processes that we're doing. We're going to show an edit screen, and then we're going to save those items to the database, the change items to the database, and then we will redirect to a thank you page after the database action has been done. Right, here comes the view. Okie dokie. So, there's items in here we have talked about before in previous lessons. As you can see, MVC creates a lot of code for you, which is sometimes a good thing. We're showing here our headers of our table of our user, and then we're going to list each user via this action here. You can see we've got edit and delete actions created around this, which is useful. So that's always good. The other thing we should have done is we've got one for edit. We should have added one obviously for our show view, for our initial details one, and again list, because we want to see everybody, and oops, so we want to see everybody here. So I have made a mistake. Yeah, for the edit view, I should have done what I'm doing now. For the edit view, we do not want to see everybody. We just want to see the particular person we're editing. So it'll do its magic here. Right, so let's get rid of the edits. Yes. So in the details one, yes, we do want to see everybody. So now we go back into our controller, add a view. So this is just editing. So we want to see the details of the person we're just editing. So again, these are the same as before, but we just want to edit that person. So that should be correct. There is an important aspect of code that should be in here, which is a HTML begin form. Because in MVC, yeah, some people might be asking, how does it post back? There's always a special piece of code that MVC adds in to do that, and I just want to point out what that is. Oh no, I think I have done the wrong one again. What are the odds? What we should have done is edit. Yes, okay. Now, at least we're getting this process well learnt. As the name sort of describes, we should have picked edit. Forgive me. Edit. We want to edit this item, obviously. I feel a bit silly there. So let's click edit now. At least we're learning that quite well now. Right, now what this will show, and I promise it'll show this HTML begin form piece of code. It'll come up with a submit button because we want to submit our edit changes. Right, okay, we're getting somewhere. So this is, let me just delete this. This is our edit page. This is the guy I sort of wanted to point out. When you're editing or submitting something with MVC, you have to make sure this HTML begin form is above any other action that you take, is above your submit action here. So this is our submit action here. You can see this submit button has been put in. If you have this down here, it won't submit because it needs this HTML begin form. In here, if I can just do briefly, oh, I have no IntelliSense. Oops, yeah, you can, it should be showing, you can outline which controller and which action in that controller you want to call. We won't write anything in there because we know which action it's going to call by default. So now we go in here, because it knows to call this because it's the only HTTP edit variable in here. Not all, yeah, okay, there is an error there. So we will move this line of code. After we've saved, we will do a redirect to action save. Thank you. Right, so after that submit button is clicked on that edit form, it'll call this HTTP post action. Now, so we are doing an edit. Oh, sorry, that's my bad. We don't need to add a view to this one because it's a post action. What we will need to do is, because after this action we end up here in this thank you page, is add a view to this one. If we do not have a thank you view yet. So for this one, we don't need a model, nothing. We're just going to put a text line there. It's going to be a very simple thank you page. And here we are. Oh. Is that correct? Item saved. Item saved. So we're just going to print this line here, that's being passed into here, onto here. Alright, let's build. Too much talk, not enough building. Yeah, so let's just get this up and running now. So we now have our edit view. We can now save an item to the database. We can show our initial contents quite well. But like anything today, if it's this will probably take some time to build. Just having a early premonition. But once we get this build, we'll just go through and showcase all our records first. We will edit a record, and then once that edit is done, we will go to the thank you page. We'll see that's done. Then we'll go back to our list page and see that the save actually happened. And that will be that. While that's doing that, if I have not shown the code correctly here, I'll scroll up and down again. Just make sure you have the correct namespaces here, also in your solution, and that's your code looks what is shown here. Oh, build succeed. Hallelujah. I must say I do hope you've persevered. So what I will also try to showcase is this error process here, because I wanted to sort of show how custom errors come around. Hello, and yeah, welcome back. I've had some technical issues with this tutorial. I'm going to try to finish it off here in a proper manner. So if you were building the application and the code that you had before, this is what you should have seen. So we get a full name, age, job title. We got all the information of all the users in the database there. That's what you should have seen when you built the application that I had coded before. So I'm just going to demonstrate the functionality that we put in it right now, which is the edit. So now when we edit the user as such and we press save, we will go to the thank you page, which we've all programmed in. There we go. If we go back to the first screen, we can see Lisa. Oh, let's refresh that. Let's get a fresh set of information. We can see we can have that change there. So that's all working good. And just to prove we did that data annotation, which would mean we have to put in a full name just to prove that's all working fine. And we said you had to be over a certain age. I think it was 22, so 10 should be underneath that age. Now when we press save, we should see some errors come up saying what we're entering is not correct. And that's how data annotations work. We can see there that the age error messages have come up. We can see that you have to enter a full name. If we do that, and in this case, if we don't enter an age at all, we'll see another error message come up for the age, which is now please enter an age. So we can place many different data annotations against one object. If we put in a correct age, which is 30, we'll see George has been saved to the database. And again, we go to our thank you page. That's what I was trying to demonstrate all along, and apologies for this lengthiness of this tutorial. So in the next part, which hopefully will be a lot easier, let's just go here. The next part we're going to add in the deleting and the creating of information in lesson 3, part 2 of this one. I do hope you've learned something from this. I know I have. But again, sorry for the technical problems. Okay, thank you.